Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. We're going to start one of our biggest, physically and doing stuff wise, biggest project. Obviously we've got the Primal RC Raminator. It's currently running standard 50cc 2-stroke motor, which is great fun, but it could do with a lot more speed and power, I think. And where I want to use it, it's just not practical with the noise, so we don't start annoying people with it. So basically what I've got here, I did mention on the other Raminator videos, if you click on the link in the description you can see those. We've got the Johnny Crash RC brushless conversion kit for it. So that comes with the motor mount that goes into the clutch housing of the existing gearbox. Take the fuel tank out and then you put the battery tray and ESC in there. So we'll get those put together. We'll make a start with that. We've also got a new receiver because we're going to be running this on the RadioLink RC8X controller like all the other land-based models we've got here in the boat. So that'll be easier all on the one controller. I hate having millions of controllers, drives me mad. And we've actually pushed the boat out quite a bit and gone for the Hobbywing Max4 combo. So we'll get this unboxed. It weighs an absolute ton. I'm convinced it weighs more than the engine that's in this at the minute, but time will tell. We've got some new nice big 6S packs on the way. Hopefully they'll come later. No rush to get them in because it's going to take a good while to get this motor out. We've also got a tank of fuel in there, so rather than just tipping it out, we'll take it out for one last bash tonight, hopefully enjoy the fuel in it, and then we can get it stripped down and get this in there. So the next step, I think we'll get these out, see how massive these are. I'm really excited to see these. And then we'll make a start putting the Johnny Crash kit together. This has come from Taylor RC, so it's quite difficult to get hold of these. So if you are looking for one, get on the Taylor RC, register your interest, so hopefully once they get them in, you can get one out. It's not cheap, but it's literally that or one other one that's 3 times the price. So that's the one it was. And looking at it, to be honest, did seem a better version because the other one still uses the clutch, which I didn't really want to do. So we'll get these unboxed, we'll get this put together, and then we'll check back in, laid out on the table, and then we'll see where we're going, what we need to take out, and how we're going to get it fitted. But I cannot wait because I've seen these on 12S on other YouTube channels, and it really does wake it up. So fingers crossed, it's going to be a pretty straightforward, if not long build, but it'll be worth it in the end. Right, so we've unboxed the Max4 combo, and all I can say is, wow, that thing is enormous. There's the motor there, guys. That is absolutely huge. That's literally bigger than a can of normal Coke or Pepsi, or are we allowed to say that? Many other brands of can of soda. It's huge, absolutely massive, weighs a ton, and the torque in it is crazy. I've never seen a motor shaft that big before. It's almost the size of my little finger. So that is a 560 kV 70125 motor, so 70 by 125. That is going to be epic, and it's a censored one as well, which I think will be really good in this one given the size of the big tyres, so it's not going to cog or anything. Obviously to go with that enormous motor we have an enormous ESC, so that is obviously, as you're all going to be aware, a 12S compatible ESC. Obviously there's the sensor wire there. I have gone ahead and put an XT60 on there, and I've made up a Y harness for 2 6-cell packs that will obviously give us 12S. So we've got the Hobbywing program card from other models, so once we get it all fitted up we'll set the limits on there. Again, quoting other YouTube channels, I have seen them back in the power of this ESC right down the sort of punch settings on it, even as low as like 30%, because it's just so crazy in there. So we'll see, we can take that out with us on the track and see how it goes. It's easy to press a couple of buttons and we can set that, so we'll get it all fitted and then we'll take it from there with the settings wise. But that really is impressive, fair play, unbelievable. Imagine that in your Tamiya Hornet, incredible. So the next step now then, we're going to get this beast off the bench out of the way. We'll get the Johnny Crash kit all sort of assembled and dry run, and then we can see how we're going to get the motor out. I really don't want to split the chassis, but likewise I don't want to cut it out as well. I've seen some videos where they've cut a hole in the side of it to get the engine out, but if it comes to that, I'm just going to have to split the chassis halves. We're going to have to suck that one up, get the motor out, because I really don't want to cut it. So that's the next step, guys, get that kit put together. See you in a minute. Okay guys, I brought you in a bit closer so we can sort of go through this together. All I've done is open the outer bag so we can get in here together and see what is in there. Chuck them mean, that's the receiver what we mentioned earlier, so we get that out of the way, wind that up. That's the least of our worries getting that done. So let's grab our scissors and get in here. This is the battery tray kit. So obviously this is going to replace some of the alley bits in the back that's already in the truck, with the kill switches and emergency cut-offs and whatnot. So we get in here, really nicely packed. Whoever packed these, they really do take their time packing all this up, which is great given the crazy cost of this stuff. It's nice to see someone puts a bit of effort into making sure it gets to us in one piece. So well done, Taylor, or whoever packed this up. So all the bits there. One thing I am noticing, guys, is a lack of instructions. So there's some battery straps there. Johnny Crash RC, cool, get them in. There you go, so you've got the carbon battery tray. Obviously these battery straps are going to go through these holes here, and we're going to get the lipos running in there. I am toying the idea, it depends on, once we get this fitted, how big it is, whether I'm going to put 3 4S's or 2 6S's, probably be 2 6S's, purely for ease of wiring it, to be honest. There's the fittings there, like little standoffs and things, so we get that put together. So that's the first bit. What's this one? Crossbar mount. This one goes in between, again, I'm saying like I know what I'm doing, purely from looking at other YouTube videos. This kit spans across the chassis of the truck, and the battery tray or ESC tray sort of gets suspended in between the chassis rails. So I'm trying to do this quickly because it's going to be a 10 million hour long video, otherwise we're going to be a bit careful not scratching stuff. So we pick all that mess up off the floor later, guys, don't worry. I hate making a mess. They really are nice pieces. Right, there's another bag of little washers in there. Get them out. It's one of those points where I can't actually see if this is recording, so I'm really hoping it is, because I can't box all this up again, can I? So these, from what I've seen, that goes in the middle there, some fashion, and the tray sort of gets suspended from that on the chassis. So we'll figure that out in a second. See that. More rubbish. What's this one? Max4 generic ESC hanger. So this bit is what hangs off there, I think. So I'm going to have to get back on the Taylor RC website and figure out the video for this, guys. Not wanted to steal their footage, but we're going to have to get some instructions of this. I love it when stuff's wrapped properly, just really does show a bit of care. There you go. Okay, so there's more fitted. We get all this fitted. Wow, look at the machining on that. Oh, that is really nice. Epic finish on that, guys, fair play. So that's a hanger there, that'll go on there. Oh, I think that's what that is. Maybe that'll go through there. Yeah, something like that. That'll go through there. That'll go on there. And then that hangs. Something like that, I think, in between the chassis. So that's where the ESC, the Max4. I'm guessing because it says Max4 ESC holder, that these screws will line up with the bottom of the Max4. Those 4 there. So fingers crossed. If not, we'll figure it out. We can always re-drill it. Don't forget though, if you're re-drilling carbon, put on mask on, because it is absolutely disgusting stuff. You really don't want to get that anywhere near you. And this is the motor adapter kit. Obviously a vital piece to get that motor fitted into the existing clutch housing. As I said before, I went for this one, A, because it was cheaper, and B, because I didn't want to use the clutch. This goes into the clutch housing of the truck, but it doesn't actually use the Primal clutch. Oh, the machining on this, guys, is epic, fair play. That really is nice. So obviously that goes on the top of the motor first. Slide down onto the motor, that goes over the top, and that pole there is what goes into the gearbox, and that's what drives the chain drive to get it into the transfer box. And then the motor, well, that sort of goes, that goes in there like that, and then that goes on the top there, and that's what bolts into the Raminator clutch housing. And then further down, that is like a rear support for the motor. So the video I showed, or I watched earlier, was really useful actually, because she said you need to put this on first, slide it down the motor, so you haven't got to get it over the wires at the back, slide that down, and then get all this on the top, then you can offer it up into the truck. So we'll do that, and then that is obviously all the mounting hardware, get that Max4 fitted to this bracket. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go ahead and get all this put together. We're going to leave it really loose, as was recommended on one of the other videos I watched, because if you leave everything slightly loose, you've got a little bit of wiggle and play, so you can get it all fitted into place and then tighten it up after. So the first thing I think I'm going to do, I'm going to mount the Max4 into the bracket. We figure out how this bracket goes together. So we've got all this put together. We'll go and enjoy that last tank of juice in the Raminator on 2-stroke. It's last hurrah, if you like, on 2-stroke. And then we'll go and get that motor out, and we'll get all this fitted in. I'm not going to video the entire lot, because that's just going to be one of the most boring videos ever. So we'll sort of do it in a couple of little time-lapse stages, so we can see just for that stage, that stage, that stage, and then the final result of obviously it all fitted. So fingers crossed, see if it all fits. Okay, you've come back, guys, just as we're finishing up popping the Max4 into the new mount. Didn't really video putting all this together, to be honest, because it literally took 2 minutes. Very, very self-explanatory. What I did was, like I said, go onto the Taylor RC website, clicked on this product in their box, and there's a couple of pictures, not super duper admittedly, but they're enough just so you can see how the thing goes together, and most of it will only go one way, which is great. The quality of the parts, so the threads, the bolts, everything, it is absolutely bang on, really, really good quality. So we'll just make sure all these last ones are tightened up now. All sorted, and all this Max4 falling out. So basically, that's how it's going to sit in the truck. So when you get this kit together, there's little machined out flats on some of the parts, so they'll only go the one way. Like in the end of this bracket there, there's a little machined slot just so you can line up this top bar. So if you can see on the camera there, but there's flats machined into the top of that. So once you slide it in and you've got it lined up where you want it in the truck, you tighten these 2 grub screws on the top of the pinch bolts, and they're going to tighten up onto the flat there. Same in here, there's a little cut out there for the end of the bar so it doesn't twist. So you've got 2 bolts, there's 2 long ones, 2 short ones. The short ones go in the top, and then the longer ones, we're going to have to split the chassis of the Raminator a little bit. This unit will just drop down inside, and then the longer bolts will pinch in through the bottom. So the next step now, back on the Taylor website, we're going to work out where the brackets and whatnot go for these, get these put on there. Might not even be able to do it unless we take the fuel tank out, because it's probably going to use some of the fittings for that, so we need to have a look at that. And obviously we need to get this monster fitted to the Max4 motor, and as soon as we've done that, we can really start stripping the truck down. Not looking forward to it, but it's got to be done. We'll get there. Okay guys, we're just finishing up putting the Max4 motor into this new mount. So I'm just Loctiting up the grub screws, because we really don't need this to be coming undone. I'll show you a little trick that I've just learned on the video that's on the Taylor website. It's quite a good video, just to give you some little clues. So we'll tighten that up on there. Really don't need that coming undone. So basically on the Taylor website, it's telling us we need to put this mount on first. Obviously can't get it over the wires, so get that over there first. We can tighten that up in a second. We need to put this fitting on, and then this thing here, which goes into the clutch housing, needs to be a very specific height. Now it's suggested a 5mm gap on the Taylor website, and that reason, when you put this fitting on, which is what goes into the clutch housing, that locates on there. You don't want anything sticking out from this clutch adapter, if you like, I suppose, which is what's going to drive the car. You don't want any of that sticking out above this. Likewise, you don't want any of this inside this, because this end needs to be exactly right into the drive of the truck. So we do that by a 5mm gap in between there, like goes the rear one. So we'll have a 5mm gap in there, and then when we put this fitting on, the edge of this, the bottom edge of it, is exactly flush with the top ring of that one there where my finger's pointing. So when you put it on, locate it, there's no gap at all. Hopefully you can see that on camera what I mean in there. So this piece here is completely flush, these two, okay? So we're going to use these longer screws now. They're going to go through there and we're going to tighten them up, which is going to hold all this in place. Then once we put this bracket on, get the screws in there, we'll orientate the motor where it needs to be. Ideally the wires popping on the back there, like that, so they'll go up into the ESC. That'll bolt down into the truck, that'll bolt into the clutch housing. That is pretty much it, to be honest, for this kit. So we're going to go ahead and get that bolted up, and then that's about it really. The rails that hold the battery tray in would appear they're already holding in the electric tray in the back of the truck anyway. Like 2 alley bars that have got the battery on, the LiPo for the servos of the radio and whatnot, your receiver, all that bits and bobs is all on that piece. So that's going to come out. We get that popped in, and then these brackets and spacers and shockers just go in between there, and then they use the body clips which came in this pack, and they'll just slide in and they'll hold us into the existing fittings of the truck. So pretty self-explanatory with that. So I'm going to finish this up, use that petrol in the truck, and then we can make a start getting it all fitted. Hopefully it'll go in pretty smoothly, because I'm so excited to get this going on 12S. Cannot wait. Okay, so we've got the wheels off the Raminator and obviously the body. So I'm just trying to figure out quite quickly how we get the motor and fuel tank out. So fuel tank, pretty easy to get out, just 4 bolts on the top there. So we're going to disconnect all the fuel lines and we'll lift that out first. So that's going to give us more access sort of down the back here to get the exhaust off and the engine out. Nothing holding the engine in from this side by the look of it. It's just pushed quite tight up against that frame. So we need to disconnect obviously the throttle servo, which is this one coming over here, this black one. So we'll get that out and that goes into the carb there. So we get that out. Then we've got a bolt there. So one's already fallen out of there, and the other one there, that's the 4 bolts that hold the engine into this sort of transfer case where the chain drives down into the gearbox at the bottom, under there. So we'll do that. We'll get the exhaust off. Just got the spring clamps and some Jubilee clips on the bottom there. They're not too bad to get off. Bit of wiring to get out. And there's also this exhaust bracket down in there, which is bolted through there, so we can get the exhaust off. So I think first up, we'll get the fuel tank out and the exhaust off. Start getting some of the wiring out. That'll give us a lot more room around the engine. Get the plug cap off, things like that. So we're sort of stripping down the engine as much as we can. Not a lot of room in there to get that out. I've seen some people, they have to split the chassis on these here. Maybe we can just undo them a little bit just to give us a little bit more room to get the engine out. And then obviously the new motor will just bolt in that way in place of these 4 bolts here. So that's the next step. I think start taking the tank out and the exhaust off. That's going to be my first target, I think. Right, so I've taken the tank out. Simply, like I said before, just the 4 bolts on the top there, and the 2 fuel lines that came over up into the bottom of the carb, so that's out. Taking the exhaust off, just the 2 little Jubilee clips that were on the front of there, and the spring. So there's a spring hanging there, look. Taking that off, I did have to remove this crossbar here because I couldn't lift the pipe out. Tried loads of ways, that's why the plug cap's off there, because I thought I'd maybe pull it out, but I had to take that off. So straight back on so we remember where things go. So I think the next step, if I disconnect the throttle cable from the servo, it's buried right in the back there, just up in there, so we'll take that out. I don't think there's anything else on in there, maybe the kill switch, we'll have to take that out. So we'll get the other end of this off the servo, and then we're going to set about maybe undoing the 4 bolts through here, and we can start getting this motor out. Nice, that one came out quite nicely. So we get that one out there. And I think, well, there's obviously one missing there, and then that one, and then we should be able to loosen the motor up a bit. Alright guys, another quick update. The engine is out. That's the clutch housing there, look. That was an absolute nightmare to get out, I've got to be honest. There was a lot more that had to be broken off, or separated if you will. To undo all these, that's why people cut these sections out here. They cut along there, and across there, just so you can slide the engine out. Obviously I didn't want to do that. So basically I've undone all of the bolts on the sides, the suspension arms. I didn't want them to fall out, but unfortunately I went a bit too far, so I managed to leave these bottom ones in just to allow that side frame to come out a little bit, just so we can get the clutch out. So that's out. So I'm going to get all these bolts put back in before I forget. get them in, and these little spacer pieces and whatnot, they sort of go up around here, extra bracing. So I'm going to get all that back in, and then what I'm going to have to do is, no instructions anywhere to get that off. So an Allen bolt in the middle there, if you see that. So that needs to come out, because I think that is where the input shaft from the motor goes through, and that's what will obviously drive those chain drives in here. So that's my next step. Get it all back together as much as I can, because I made a right mess, absolutely filthy, but it's all good for the hobby, innit? All good fun. Let's get it back together. Right guys, I've got the bolts all back in, so the chassis is all back together as it was. So that little bolt in the center of the clutch there is what is attached to that shaft there. So obviously when the clutch spins, it'll engage, it'll spin that clutch bell housing, it'll turn that, which is what's going to turn the drive of the truck. So the Max4 kit I've got has actually got that shaft on it. Okay, so that little groove there is where that circlip will go on to. So my next step is take that circlip off, we'll carefully take the chain off, we'll get the clutch out, we can slide this new one in, and we can put that circlip and the gear back onto this new shaft on the Max4, and now we can get the 4 bolts through, 1, 2, 3, 4, get the new motor in, then we can put this cover back on and give it a bit of a clean out. Good opportunity to get in there while you can access everything and give it a good clean. So that's the next step. Circlip off, clutch bell housing off, motor in. Right, the motor's in guys. Used the new bolts from the Johnny Crash RC kit just to get some nice new bolts. That's all thread locked in. Giving this a little bit of a wipe out in there. Don't want to go too crazy because we need to get some more grease in there. These bolts here are just what's going to hold the cover back on so I don't lose them. Giving the bench a wipe because it's just stressing me out getting a bit dirty. But yeah, the motor's in. We need to fix this back bracket in. So obviously that's an awful lot of weight hanging on the 4 bolts on the front, and the torque of this motor is going to be crazy. So there's a little bracket on the back there, so I've got to put a cross member back in the chassis of the truck on there, and then we can secure the back of that motor. ESC wires, they're just going to come up through the top, as is the sensor wire. Don't forget this is a censored system. Once we've got that back motor mounted in there, now we're going to put the cradle for the Max4 in the top there, and then we're going to use these rails and these fittings from the fuel tank, and that's what, sorry, that's the front, these rails for the fuel tank, and we're going to put the battery tray on the top there. So we're getting there. What a long-winded thing. I don't think I've ever spent so much time or effort working on an RC car before, but it's going to be worth it. We got this. So we've got the motor in, and as you can see through there, we've got the back bracket on just to support the back of the motor can. Next stage now is to put the hanging bracket for the Max4 speed controller. So obviously earlier on I put this together, so we need to undo the chassis bolts again, these 4 here, and then this will drop in. I've already done it on the other side so you can see. These little brackets we're going to take out, the shim spacer things from the 2 chassis frames, so this will slide in the middle, and then we can put the bolts back through the new one that comes with the kit and the 4 existing ones either side, and then that will lower down inside and we can plug the motor wire up into the ESC. So that's what we're going to get cracking with next. Right, next super quick update guys. Changed the little bushing in there because there was a funny 3-hole sort of corner spacer between these 2 chassis plates. So we've got the new ESC hanger there all fitted in, one of the new bolts securing it there, and we've got the spacer in there and in that side. So you can see it just suspends nicely over the top of the chassis. Motor wires come down, obviously we'll tidy some of these up after. That's the sensor wire there, so we get those all tidied up. Max4 hiding underneath. So definitely getting there now. We've got the wires coming out for the battery and the switch and the receiver. So what we need to do next is get the battery tray fitted, and then we can get in here, get the new receiver in, get this all plugged in. I have got a splitter lead because I do still want to use the factory disc brakes, because this is an awful heavy truck with a lot of speed and power now, and I don't really want it using the gearbox and the motor to stop 100%. So we'll have a little play with the wiring after. So we're going to use this brake servo, so when you're accelerating, obviously it'll release the brake. When you're putting the brake on, it's going to slide that, and it's going to apply the disc brakes. So that's going to be our next bit, battery tray in. That's the Carbon Johnny Crash Racing battery tray fitted. A bit confused because it says to put it in at an angle, which I can't really tell on there, but I don't really get why it's at an angle. Also, the front end is fixed down with 2 Allen bolts into the existing fuel tank rail. The back one, although fitted to the fuel tank rail, it's got these funny, I don't think you can see them, I'm getting there. Yeah, these funny little quick release body pin type things, just about see them up under there, which I don't know why you'd have quick release on the back and not on the front, because you can't take it out, but then it rattles, and that's going to really drive me crazy. So I'm going to have to take these out, and I'm going to put some rubber grommets in between it, because that's going to drive me crazy rattling around like that. But we're pretty much done now, so all we need to do is get the motor wires, the battery wires through there. I'll probably run them under there so they're a bit neat and tidy, they're not flapping around then. Maybe even fix them to the side there with a cable tie, maybe, yeah, I'll do that. And then we've obviously got to get the ESC wire into the receiver, but if you remember back from earlier in the video, we're going to run a new radio link receiver so I can use my standard radio link controller I use for all my other trucks. So that is pretty much it done, guys. So the motor's in, ESC's in, all the sides are back on, the cover's back on. So all I need to do now is just wire the receiver in, and we should be good for a little test run. Wish me luck. So it's all in, it's all powered up. You can hear the fan going. We've got the on-off switch there. We've got our two 6S 5100 packs there, so we're running 12S. We've got a Max4 down on the bottom there, absolutely massive motor, that one. I've got all the steering servos all wired up on a new Y harness that I had to make up because I had to take out the original Raminator one because there was loads of bits we didn't need off it, like the kill switch and ignition coil pickups and things like that. Got the RadioLink R8FG receiver in there because we've got some extra channels for the gearbox servo, which I do need to finish. Nice long antennas, massive range on this, and that's back on my trusty RC8X controller. I've heard some people having issues with these. RC Andy mentioned the other day he was having some brownouts and whatnot. I've had this for years, never had any grief with it, so maybe I'm a lucky one, maybe you're an unlucky one, Andy, but this one has been brilliant. I've got all my models on there, never had any grief with it, so fingers crossed that'll continue with this one. Set it up on the Hobbywing program card because I'm too tight to pay another £40 for the Bluetooth module, but who knows, you might get that in the future. So we've got the steering all working, that's great. I would like to upgrade these links to the V4 one because it does take a lot less strain off the servo when you crash, which is absolutely going to happen with this combo. So we've got the forwards working. I'll just do it really slowly because we're in the garage and I don't want to destroy anything. And then when you press the brake, the disc brakes go on as well. So we've got engine braking from the motor and the original disc brakes. And then we can pop it into reverse and it'll go backwards. Now the only trouble there is if you go backwards fast, if you watch the brake, it puts the brake on. So what I need to do is get another harness made up, which only take 2 minutes. We can sort the gearbox servo out because we don't want the Max4 to use it for reverse. We need the existing Raminator gearbox to select reverse, and then the motor will continue to spin forwards. So it's going to be a bit strange. You're still going to pull forwards, but the trucks are going to go backwards because we've shifted the gearbox into reverse. And then obviously the brakes won't be dragging when the car's going backwards. But at the moment, we're pretty much there now. So we just need to tie the wiring up a little bit, put that cover back on there. I need the grease all in the gearbox and everything. Because this year, if you remember earlier, I cleaned all that out. So we just need to get some nice grease back in there, keep it all tip top. Good opportunity now, we've got it all nice and clean as well to really finish it off, get it all really cleaned up. And then we can get the body back on and give it a first test. But it was a little bit worse than I thought in some areas, but a little bit easier in others. So not too bad a job, actually. Didn't take that long, probably 3 hours, I suppose, something like that. And now we've got a 12S Raminator. Can't wait to try it out. Alright guys, just a super quick little bit. This is for Mr. Simon Gardner. I'll put a link in the description for his channel. It always moans that when I put stuff back together, I never grease or oil it up enough. So I'm going to chuck all this in here, so you can see on camera that I have done it. Because I know you won't believe me if I tell you I've done it. So we're going to get a load of that. The amount of this that was in here when I took the cover off was crazy. So we get a good load back in there. I don't care if it goes everywhere because we can clean it all out, all off the outside after, but this was sounding and feeling really dry in here, so we get a load back in there, multi-purpose grease, so that'll hopefully prolong the life of all that a little bit. So there you go, Si, I'm not fibbing, mate, it's lubed back up. All right, cheers, champ. All right guys, excuse the state of me and the wind and the no body, but I was too excited, I had to try it out. So wheels back on, it's all wired up, it's all sorted. The only thing I need to finish is the gearbox servo. At the minute we're using the motor for reverse, not the gearbox, so we'll just give it a gentle blip in the street and see if it's woken it up. Here we go. I would say that's woken it up, but it's a little more punchy than a 50cc.